Sheriff, Mrs. Fletcher, come on in. I'm Greg Young. What can I do for you?
Were you aware that Peter Hammond was killed last night?
No. That's terrible. Was it an accident?
I'm afraid not. Peter was murdered.
He was working for you, right?
Yes, he was. I'm working on a project researching the lobster population off the coast, and Peter was helping me gather data.
How did you connect with him?
I posted a flyer at the lobster pound, looking for a lobsterman willing to make detailed notes about the lobsters he was catching. Peter was the first one to answer the ad.
I just got a call from the station.
What is it?
Billy Hammond says there's been a break-in on his uncle's boat. Okay, Billy, what happened here?
Some guy broke in here, was poking around the cabin. He took off when he heard me coming.
Do you have any idea who it was?
Nah, I only caught a glimpse of him as he ran off. But whoever it was, he smokes a pretty nasty cigar.
Let's head over to the Harborside Tavern and see if we can find someone who smokes Dominican cigars.
Good idea. While we're there, we can see if anyone remembers seeing Andy Winters there last night. Oh dear. Looks like this place has fallen on hard times.
It's the only place I know in Cabot Cove that sells Dominican cigars.
Let's ask around and see if anyone remembers Peter spending any time here. There's someone smoking one of the Dominican cigars we found at the crime scene.
That's Mick Foley. I should have known. He's a notorious loan shark. Enjoying your Dominican cigar, Mr. Foley?
As a matter of fact, yeah.
Billy Hammond just surprised an intruder on his uncle's boat who smokes the same kind as you.
I'll save you some trouble, Sheriff. I was on a Cornelia about an hour ago,
What were you doing there?
looking for something to collect on the loan I made to Peter a few months ago. And since Peter wasn't very good at keeping up with the payments alive, he sure ain't gonna keep up with him dead.
Defaulting on a big loan might be considered a motive for murder.
Not for me. Peter was worth more to me alive, as long as he didn't retire.
Was he ready for retirement?
Nah, but his nephew Billy couldn't wait to get his hands on the Cornelia. He was always trying to convince Peter to retire instead of taking out loans to keep the business going.
Do you know why Peter fell behind on his payments?
He said the lobsters weren't biting, but I heard through the grapevine he had an ex-wife down in Florida that kept up in the alimony.
I see. So where were you last night?
Right here, working out the details of a loan with a customer.
Andy Winters, apparently, going by this contract I found. What do you think of the deal you offered him?
Sorry, I gotta protect my client's confidentiality. Now, if you'll excuse me.
So it would seem that Andy was telling the truth about his whereabouts last night.
I'm curious what he was planning to use the money for. Let's go talk with him on his boat first thing in the morning.
Okay, Andy, we followed up on your alibi at the Harborside Tavern.
You met with Mick Foley there to discuss a loan, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. With the lobsters getting scarce, I needed the money to get through the season. Fortunately, I should be able to pay the loan back before long.
Why is that?
Heard there was a job opening near the docks. Just a little something to do on the side.
You mind if we take a look around?
Knock yourself out.
Greg Young sure didn't waste any time finding someone to replace Peter.
I agree. I wonder why he was in such a hurry.
Maybe we should go over to the lab and ask him ourselves. It looks like Andy Winters is your new assistant on your research project.
I know that replacing him so fast may seem inappropriate in light of Peter's death, but I had no choice. Any lapse in the data collection could ruin a whole season's worth of research.
Why are you repainting one of Peter's buoys into Andy's colors?
Easier to repaint it than refit another buoy with a new transmitter.
You got an explanation for the blood on these shards of glass, Mr. Young?
It's simple enough, Sheriff. I dropped a glass cylinder and cut myself when I went to pick up the pieces, and I have the bandage to prove it.
So when was the last time Peter visited your lab?
It had been a while. I usually went by his boat to pick up his data. Hope you don't mind, but I need to get back to crunching numbers.
Blood on the floor and on a possible murder weapon? Seth certainly has his work cut out for him.
I'll have him check the blood against Greg's to see if his story checks out.
Sheriff, I'm pretty sure that Billy Hammond was here at the lab the night Peter was killed.
If he has a good explanation for that, I'd like to hear it.
Sheriff, Mrs. Fletcher, what can I do for you?
You can tell us what you were doing at the Marine Research Lab the night your uncle was killed.
What? I was never there.
I'm afraid you were, Billy. We found the toothpicks you're always chewing in a wastebasket there.
Okay, maybe I did go there. I knew Peter was heading that way and I needed to talk to him.
About what?
About getting a better percentage. Lately his catches had been better than average, and I figured I was entitled to more. But when I finally got up the courage to ask him for a raise, he fired me on the spot.
And what about his promise to leave you the boat?
He said I'd never inherit the Cornelia.
So you killed him, right?
No. I mean, I lost it and knocked his lights out, but I sure didn't kill him.
What happened after that?
Nothing. I just left him there. I have no idea how he ended up back on the Cornelia.
Sheriff, if what Billy says is true, then someone else stabbed Peter and killed him.
Maybe so, but his motive is hard to ignore.
Billy, do you have any idea what sort of numbers Peter was recording for his lobster catches?
Low for most of the season. But then a couple of months ago we started getting lucky and began catching a lot more.
Why would someone fill a trap with lobsters that have already been caught?
Maybe Jim Price can sort this out. Let's go talk with him. Looks like Jim is out back with some fishermen.
Oh, we shouldn't bother him while he's doing business, Sheriff. Let's just take a quick look around the store while we wait.
Hey, what are you doing here? We're closed.
We were hoping you could clear something up for us.
How's the lobster season been so far this year?
Good. Best season we've had in years.
But Jim, if the catch has been so good, why are your tanks nearly empty now? And why did you have so few lobsters yesterday morning that you sent me to Peter instead?
Well,
Speaking of Peter's catch, you got an explanation for how a lobster can get into a trap already banded with one of your bands?
You were putting lobsters from your tanks into Peter's traps, weren't you, Jim? That's why you have that searchlight, to help you find his traps at night.
okay, yeah, I was. It was costing me plenty, too, since I had to buy them back from him once he hauled them in.
Why go through all that trouble?
Because my business depended on it. Look, if the Marine Research Lab confirms that there are low numbers of lobsters being caught, the government's gonna start imposing limits on how many lobsters the guys can bring in.
And that, in turn, would limit how many you have available for sale.
So you stacked the deck.
Well, that's one way to put it, yeah. I went out after dark, hauled Peter's traps, and stocked them with extra lobsters so that the numbers he reported to the lab looked good.
Let me guess. Peter caught you tinkering with his gear, threatened to tell Greg you skewed the data, so you killed him.
No, Peter was clueless.
Besides, Sheriff, if Jim was successfully stacking the deck, then Peter was worth more to him alive than dead.
Okay, but don't take any last-minute vacations.
Jim couldn't have put those lobsters in Peter's traps by himself. He would have had to have help from someone with a boat.
Yeah, and from the evidence we've seen, I bet that it's Andy who's been doing the helping. Tomorrow we'll have another early morning interview with him. Seth called me last night. He said the blood traces on those broken pieces of glass match Peter's blood type and not Greg's.
So he was definitely killed at the lab with that broken glassware?
It looks that way. Maybe Greg had a motive we haven't figured out yet. Or maybe Andy made a stop at the lab after he left the Harborside Tavern. Or maybe he and Mick are covering for each other because they killed Peter together.
Well, we can ask Andy about it right now. His boat is right over there. Oh, dear. Poor Andy.
Looks like someone got to him before we did, Mrs. F. Maybe that IOU didn't get torn up because it was paid off.
You mean it could have been torn up during an argument between Andy and Mick?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. And since Andy's not going to tell us about it, we'll have to get the story from Mick himself.